I met David in college at the University of Iowa, and when we finished school, we moved to Waterloo, and he practiced law and I taught. After that, we were ready to come back to the farm, and so I taught in Waterloo, and he farmed the family farm. When David died, it was hard for me to see a way forward with managing acres and acres of corn and soybeans. I had good renters, but it was still a new task for me. So I started thinking, what else could it be? What could it become? And prairie came to mind. John Madsen's book, Where the Sky Began, came out, and David and I both read it. We loved the idea of Iowa's history. My husband was a big fan of history, so the thought of Iowa's landscape as it was 200 years ago intrigued us. This beautiful landscape of native plants, grasses, forbs, kept our interest, and that was always in the background. 2016, my husband died in May, and it came to me then, and then the next summer I contacted Laura Jackson.
We had planted some strips of prairie just a couple miles south of her. I didn't know her then, but something must have made an impression, because a year later, after her husband had passed away, she called us up and had this idea. It's amazing what happens when you plant any small bit of prairie. You know, if you build it, they will come. You know, the bees show up, butterflies show up, somehow the birds find it, and will raise a family there and try to make a go of it. It's not easy to plant a prairie, but it can be done in 1 year. But the management is forever. They need fire, and woody invasion is going to happen, and then you kind of get something that goes out of control, and then a lot of times they end up taking them out because they're just too much trouble. So we started talking in early 2017, and then, you know, worked through the various hoops and logistics of working with the UNI Foundation so that we could get a permanent easement on the land. We had to really convince the university that this was a good idea, that this is something that we could take care of properly and not just end up with an albatross around our necks, you know. So we worked out a map that said, all right, we're going to do this chunk in 2018, and then this chunk in 2019, and then 2020, 21, 22. But this field was very clean. It didn't have a lot of issues with weeds because it had been farmed for so long. So it was an ideal spot.
Now right here is like one little piece that just encapsulates all the pretty things that are blooming right now. Pale purple coneflower is just starting to bloom. The white is wild quinine. The orange butterfly weed is just stunning. It's just like neon orange. This other white, I think, is wild indigo, and it is so weird. It's got that bizarre shape, and they aren't very prevalent, but when they are, they just glow. I don't have children, so it's wonderful for me. I can walk on the prairie every day, but I want to share it and have the young people in schools come and learn about the history and appreciate being outside in all this beauty.
So we're out looking a different way to look for insects. We're looking at sign of insects, meaning some of the leaves that are woven together, or a plant that's bending over, and we go down the stem and we find the little hole of the borer in the stem. Okay. So this is a planted prairie. How do you get the insects that need these plants here? They come on their own. How do they find it? Where's the next prairie around here? And yet they find this. Mm-hmm. I think it's exciting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So
it changes every day, particularly this time of the year after the prairie was burned, that everything is starting to flower. It's like spring every day. It's an unending, joyful surprise to come to the prairie every day.
Well, it was about 85% prairie and the rest wetlands and woodlands. The landscape we see today is almost entirely corn and soybeans with only very tiny fractions of that agricultural grassland that used to be there. You know, I think we're doing what we can in the face of some pretty staggering facts. You know, climate change, and then, you know, agriculture continues to intensify. So we try to save as much as we can so something makes it. So is the glass 99% empty or 1% full? But, you know, there are lots of people who appreciate prairie and want to have some, you know. So I don't think anyone should be intimidated into thinking, well, I have to give them 300 acres? No, you know, but it's an astonishing gift.
At the dedication, I quoted Willa Cather, "We come and go, but the land is always here. The people who love and understand it are the people who own it, for a little while." And then I said, my little while is over. I'm here with you people who love the prairie and dedicating it to you and your stewardship. But I want you to remember that the original people who loved and understood it cared for it for thousands of years and maintained it as prairie.